Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Ray Petree, and this is the best professional wrestling podcast from pillar to post, Petree's Pit. I'm joined once again by my co-host, my tag team partner, the Arn Anderson to my Tully Blanchard, JDO Double G. Jordan, how's it going today, brother?
It's going good, man. It's going good.
We're recording a little later in the day than usual. I have much more energy than I usually do, I feel like, which seems like a flaw in our planning, but anyways, that's not important. We got a lot to talk about, and at the same time, not that much. We had World's End last weekend. We watched the show. We want to talk about it a little bit, not get into granular detail, but just give our thoughts on the show, because the pay-per-views are $50 a pop, and it can get a little pricey at times. And I think it's worth talking about. And what we're really going to be talking about today is Raw on Netflix, debuting this Monday. This is, I think all in all, a very big deal. For the first time in a long time, there will be no wrestling on cable television. So, Jordan, what did you think? Just general thoughts before we get into it. What did you think about the pay-per-view? Do you think it was worth the $50 price of admission?
Yeah, I would say it is, or it was. The the matches were really good. I thought, the fact that Will Ospreay wrestled twice in one night was pretty spectacular. Both really good matches. Um, I felt like the and also have Okada wrestling twice. I thought was cool. So, you're really getting your money's worth with that. And then you had, the Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander match, part two, which was awesome. Those two really work really well together. Um, all of the wrestling that you got on the show, I thought, it really made it worth it. Plus, you had the return of Kenny Omega, a big moment. So all in all, yeah, I think it was definitely worth it.
Going down the match card with Uncle Dave Meltzer's star ratings, Osprey versus Fletcher opened the show. He called it possibly the best match to kick off a pay-per-view in wrestling history. He gave it 5 stars. Okada versus Ricochet, he gave it 4 stars. Mariah May versus Thunder Rosa in a Tijuana street fight, 3.25 stars. MJF versus Adam Cole for the Dynamite Diamond Ring, also 3.25 stars. Konosuke Takeshita versus Powerhouse Hobbs, 3.75 stars. That match was for the International Championship. Mercedes Moné versus Statlander, like you talked about, 4.25 stars for the TBS Women's Championship. The finale of the Continental Classic saw Okada versus Osprey. Dave Meltzer gave it 5.25 stars. This was Will Ospreay had 2 5-star matches in one night, bringing his grand total in 2024 to 15 5-star matches in one calendar year, which is more than almost every wrestler ever has had, by his rating scale. And in the main event, saw Jon Moxley defend his world championship against Hangman Adam Page, Jay White, and Orange Cassidy, 3.5 stars. Meltzer clearly liked the show a lot, although I do think it speaks to something we felt when we were watching the show, that it definitely was a mixed bag. The highs were really high. The lows were pretty average. I feel like in 2025, Dave Meltzer's star rating scale, 3.25 is probably pretty average based on how freely he gives 4 and 5-star matches. So, um, we talk about it every time there's a pay-per-view. These pay-per-views are really long. There's a lot of content to digest. This was 8 matches, but it was, a 3.5-hour pay-per-view. And at times it felt like a slog. What matches would you have clipped from this if you were, you're booking the show and on the cutting room floor? What matches would you have removed, if any? Or do you think it was well paced and this was enough wrestling?
I definitely I would have cut the Takeshita and Powerhouse Hobbs match off the card. I don't think that one. I mean, the match wasn't particularly that great. The international championship hasn't been that relevant in the with the company since they introduced it. And overall, just it wasn't a match I would have had on a pay per view. Um, I mean, as far as the other ones, mean, everything else was fine. You know, I mean, the Tijuana street fight was okay. You know, I think the fact that Mariah May actually got to defend her title on a pay per view was great since it's been few and far between. Um, but yeah, I would have cut the international championship match out of it, and then everything else, I felt had a place.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hobbs and Takeshita was pretty. That would have been a great main event on Dynamite or Collision, but I don't think it needed to be on a pay per view. Um, I like on one hand you like seeing Hobbs get a spotlight, but on the other hand, it's just him losing again. Um, but Takeshita looked great in the match. I guess that's important, but yeah, I really love this Mercedes Moné Chris Statlander match, and I think Mercedes Moné is really hitting her stride in AEW now. I think she's finally getting up there as both a character and her in ring work is matching the output that she had in the WWE. Dynamite, she had that red carpet celebration where she kind of talked about the highlights of her 2024. She's undefeated since debuting in AEW 15-0, and that's across AEW and New Japan and Stardom, as she is a New Japan Strong Women's Champion. What do you think about her character and where this is heading for her?
I mean, it's definitely gotten better. When she first showed up, it really looked like it might be bad. I mean, everybody was talking about her promos and how they weren't that good. Her wrestling was okay, and it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't what we were accustomed to seeing. Um, but obviously, and then you had the whole thing with Camille, and that whole thing went nowhere, and it was just really, really clunky. And now it seems like since she started to go against Statlander, and she's had two really good matches with Chris Statlander, they really, it's really kind of raised her stock. It feels like, and also Chris Statlander's too. They have a really good chemistry in the ring. Um, so it's definitely moving in the right direction. Whether it will continue that way remains to be seen. Obviously she can't wrestle Chris Statlander every single match. That's really been the highlight match for her so far. So we'll see how it goes whenever she does lose the title, and goes in a different direction. But as of right now, it's been better. It's been really good, and it's starting to pay off them bringing her in.
On a 5-star scale, what would you give this pay per view?
Um, I mean, it was a really good pay per view. Uh, I mean, I'd rate it up there pretty high. I don't want to just throw out 5 stars like Dave, but maybe 4.5, 4 3/4.
Wow.
I mean, you think about you had Will Ospreay and uh, um, Okada, excuse me. They wrestled twice, so those guys you get to see them wrestle twice in one show, including against each other. Ospreay kind of dispelling the he can't sell rumors. Um, Obviously the Statlander Mercedes match was great. You had MJF and Adam Cole, which MJF is great in the ring anyway, so getting to see him wrestle is always awesome. Um, and then the 4-way was what it was. Didn't expect anything crazy to happen, but FTR and Radar Superstar Cope coming back and fending off the Death Riders was a cool moment to end the show. So overall, it was everything you really want in a show. You had great matches. Have a great surprise at the end that sets up for your show afterwards. So all in all, it's what you want. So yeah, I would say 4.5, 4 3/4 probably.
Adam Copeland shortening his name to the Rated R Superstar Cope is a pretty stupid decision. Pretty dumb. He will not be referred to Cope on this podcast because that's ridiculous. Sorry, Adam Copeland, but that's ridiculous. And good luck making that stick.
He's got that
But
WWE in him.
yeah, well, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's
That's a
he's the
WWE thing through and through.
yeah, he's a
Shortening
WWE.
your name.
Yeah. My last question, and then we'll seriously move on. Better return, Adam Copeland or Kenny Omega?
Um, I mean, they were both really good. I mean, Kenny coming back, like I don't know, they really didn't. He didn't obviously he didn't speak,
Yeah.
so you don't really know what he's going to do, when he's actually going to come back and be a part of AEW, or if he was just making an appearance because he's
Well,
obviously supposed to
he was
wrestle.
announced. He's coming back next week on Dynamite.
That's right. That's right. He was.
Yeah.
I take that back. Um, but yes, you don't really know what he's going to do. I mean, I would say probably Kenny coming back, seeing as how he's probably going to be more important to you know, the whole AEW story long term because he's the EVP. You can put him in a few different things. You could have him go after the Death Riders. You could have him. Obviously, he teased wrestling Okada. You could always circle back to Osprey. So I think there's more things, more prominent things you could involve him with than Adam Copeland at this point. Even though Copeland and FTR wrestled the Death Riders and seems like they might be going after them for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think Kenny coming back there is always big. He's the big star there. He's the AEW original, so he's always going to be the bigger return in the AEW sense.
Sure. I agree with you. I think it's Omega through and through. Yeah. So I reviewed the pay-per-view, Gusta Free Press. I gave it 3.5 stars. Definitely not quite uh, as high as you. I thought it was, they definitely could have cut out some stuff and had some matches a little bit longer and flesh some things out better. But it was a good pay per view, like you said, great pay per view. Teetering on great. I think it was very good. But yeah, Osprey's. I mean, wow, 2 matches to get busted open the way he did in that first match, and just all that bloodletting, and he lost so much blood, man. It was shocking, and then to go out and wrestle again. If he was not already a star, that would have been a star-making performance. But you know, he obviously last week I said he was the wrestler of the year. So, and he just went out there and proved me right. So thank you, Will Ospreay. But um, any last thoughts?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. You Great pay per view, good wrestling, and see where it goes in the future.
Um, this is a big week for professional wrestling, and it continues on Monday. AEW begins this simulcast era. Dynamite is now not only broadcast on TBS but on Max live in 4K if you have a 4K television. Um, and WWE, last week was the last Monday Night Raw on USA Network, ending an era that's lasted uh, 30 years now of network television wrestling on Monday nights. No longer, obviously W Nitro has been gone for 25 years, but WWE now moving to Netflix, and the first Raw on Netflix is next Monday. It's going to be a huge show. A lot's been announced. I think a lot of people are anticipating some returns. So let's start with the matches. We have Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa, Tribal Combat. The winner ostensibly receives the Ulafala. Um, the Women's World Championship is on the line. Liv Morgan defending her title against Rhea Ripley in a last woman standing match. CM Punk versus Seth Rollins, continuing that feud that they've been. It's really, been going on for a year now, essentially. But obviously they're coming back around to it after Punk was injured. And then Jey Uso versus Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre on this crusade against all the people who have helped Roman Reigns. Um, I guess my first question is what match main events this show in your opinion? What should not what you expect, but what should be the main event of this show?
I mean, I feel like it should be Rollins and Punk
Mhm.
because I think that that's going to be the best match of the night. But um, I would, I'll say what I expect. I expect it to be Roman and Solo,
Okay.
just because obviously the bloodline runs everything in WWE. Everything revolves around it. It's been the central storyline for years. Um, and, hopefully I'm proven wrong, but just kind of knowing how WWE is, I'm pretty sure that's probably what's going to be the main event. Especially if a certain someone gets involved, returns, makes an appearance, whatever. Then it will definitely be the last match. But I would hope it would be Seth and CM Punk because their rivalry's been great. Their promos that they've cut back and forth have been awesome. And I think it's going to be like I said, the best match of the night. So that's the one I would put on blast.
I should mention New Day last Monday on Raw challenged Rey Mysterio to a tag match. Rey Mysterio has a mystery partner. We don't know if that match is going to be on this Raw or not. It was, they didn't exactly say one way or the other. I think a lot of us expect Penta El Cero Miedo or Pentagon Jr., whatever you want to call him. A lot of people expect him to debut on this week's episode of Netflix, of Raw on Netflix. Possibly as Rey Mysterio's tag team partner. They have history together. Rey Mysterio is very fond of Penta's work. But I guess how excited are you for Penta's debut on Netflix? Do you think it's going to be a big deal? I assume a lot of people won't know who he is, but
Yeah, I mean that's probably what I would say. I mean, me personally, yeah, I'd be excited to see it. Um, Obviously, having watched him in AEW and other places. Yeah, I don't really understand why the WWE, because if you look at it, when Jay Cargill was signed, they really made it a big deal. They talked about it on the shows, they showed the articles in the news about it, and they really hyped her up. And it really paid off because when she showed up, everybody knew who she was. They knew she was a big deal, and all that, this, that, and the other. So I don't really understand why they don't do that for more people, unless they're just expecting people to know who they are. Like I would say the same thing about the Motor City Machine Guns when they were signed and they debuted. They got an okay reaction, but a lot of people in WWE didn't watch TNA, or didn't watch when they were on AEW or didn't watch them anywhere. There's a large segment of the WWE fan base that only watches WWE. So when you bring these guys in who have no history in WWE, I think it makes it harder for them to really get over with that crowd because people don't know who they are.
yeah.
Um, so the vignettes are cool, but it doesn't really explain who he is. Now maybe him teaming with Rey Mysterio will help because obviously Rey's really popular, and him teaming with Rey will maybe that will help his stock with WWE fans. But I don't know how big he'll be there without them really explaining who he is.
Well, really, I mean, all masked wrestlers have a malleability to them because they do have a mask. And yeah, he has 10, 15 years of experience and history and all that. But like you said, to the WWE audience, which is the largest wrestling audience, the really the lowest common denominator of the wrestling community, a lot of these people aren't going to know who he is. So bringing him in with the vignettes, I get it. It gives you kind of a blank slate, a canvas to paint on, and having Rey Mysterio lend his credibility to him and speak on his behalf because Penta doesn't speak English. It's certainly not fluently. He's never really spoken English in bursts. Even he really just speaks Spanish. So having Mysterio there will go a long way to help him. I'm excited. I hope he debuts on Raw on Netflix. It'd be a huge opportunity for him to have a lot of exposure. Um, what match? So are you most excited for CM Punk versus Seth Rollins, or is there another match that you're really looking forward to, more so than that?
I mean, that's the match I'm really excited to see.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, Roman versus Solo. Obviously, I'm excited for that too. But Seth and Punk, it's been something that a lot of people have been looking forward to for a long time. I've been looking forward to it. Two really good wrestlers with a lot of history, and I think that one to me is the one that I think people are the most excited for. They're going to really
yeah.
enjoy it. Roman versus Solo Tribal Combat. I don't know if this is going to be the end for the whole Roman versus Solo OG bloodline versus new bloodline thing. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, Seth and Punk, just the rivalry between those two has been infinitely better than Roman and Solo.
Yeah. Of course, Rhea Ripley, who Jordan is a simp for, is wrestling Liv Morgan, last women's standing match for the championship. I expect Rhea Ripley to win this title. Um, I think they're ready to turn their back on Liv Morgan. But what do you think?
Well, first off, I think I've there seems like there's been like confusion on if this is actually going to be last woman standing or not, because on WWE's website they don't list it as last woman standing,
Okay.
and so there's been some confusion on whether it actually is going to be last woman standing, even though it was announced. But it looks like it may have been taken back. I'm not sure. Um, Either way, it's hard for me to say because on the one hand, yeah, you would think Rhea would win this if they're gonna finally end this feud. But at the same point, Liv has been really popular with this run. She's been gotten a lot of praise for how she's done it. She's gotten heat with the fans. Her match against Io on Saturday Night's Main Event kind of showed that she could have good matches, without not having Rhea involved. And I think it would be good for her to hold the title, um, Liv to hold the title, and be able to face different people, and also it'd be good for Rhea to have kind of go on a different path that doesn't involve the world title. At least right now, you can circle back to it later, but I think it would be good for Rhea to not be involved in it for a little while, to have some new people, get involved in the women's world title picture.
I agree. Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley both, like you said, they need to be separated. We need to bring some new women in to not only make her reign more interesting or just the title itself more interesting, but to elevate this women's division because right now it's had tunnel vision for a long time. The last segment that we really know of that's been confirmed to happen is John Cena's retirement tour begins. Now, do you expect this to be a declaration for the Royal Rumble or something more specific? Maybe someone interrupts him. What do you expect to happen here?
Um, I mean, I don't think he's going to be. I mean, it's already pretty much, you know, expected he's going to be in the Rumble, and he's going to be involved in all the pay-per-views. I don't think he really has to necessarily announce it. Um, I mean, I know there's been rumors of Cena and Cody at WrestleMania, so potentially it's not confirmed, it's just a rumor. Um, Maybe they kind of plant the seeds for that. Maybe they have somebody else step up that Cena could face, or can you have a little mini feud with? Um, it's hard to say. I don't really know where they're going to start with him. There's a multitude of different directions they could take him. Um, but it'll be interesting to see what direction they decide to go in. If it's Cody, if it's Braun Breaker, maybe for the IC title. It's a title Cena's never held. You
Yeah.
know, definitely be interesting.
I guess my question is, where are you leaning in terms of do you think he will be in the Royal Rumble itself, or do you think he's going to have a singles match at the pay-per-view?
Excuse me. Um, I would expect him. He's going to be in the Royal Rumble match.
Okay.
It's going to be, and I think if memory serves, I think he said as much in at Money in the Bank when he made his announcement that he said it was going to be his last Rumble, his last Elimination Chamber, his last Mania, etc. So I expect him to be in the Rumble match. And I would hope so anyway. His last one. I think he's got to be in the actual Rumble match itself.
Um, I want to play a little game. We have, I mean, 4 matches, John Cena coming out, the potential debut of Pentagon Jr. I mean, this is already a big show. It's going to be 3 hours though, so I think we have some space to fill, even if each match is about 20 minutes. Will blank wrestler return? Give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, maybe a little short explanation why or why not. Because I do think there are going to be some returns at this debut episode on Netflix. I do think there will be some wrestlers returning because a lot of wrestlers are out right now or have been out for a while. So let's start off. You mentioned it. You alluded to it earlier. I think this is a home run. The Rock, will he return on Raw this week?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
In some way, some form or fashion. Obviously, I'm assuming in the Roman solo match. It's almost confirmed at this point, I think. And it would make sense if he's going to be involved on the road to WrestleMania. He's kind of got to show up now and get the ball rolling. But yeah, definitely, I think he'll be there.
Do you think he opens the show like a la the first SmackDown on Fox in 2019, or do you think he's going to show up after the match?
Uh, I think it would make more sense for him to show up during the Roman solo match because that's what he's involved in. Um, I don't. If anybody was going to open the show, it'd probably be Cena. If they were going to,
Yeah.
obviously he's the big one of the big stars, big talking points. Maybe Cody would open the show. I don't really know, but whenever he shows up, it has to be within the confines of the Bloodline story.
The man, Becky Lynch.
Yes, she's been in the the promo packages for the Raw on Netflix, and it sounds like she's been close to returning for a while now. They want her involved in the road to WrestleMania and everything, so I would say definitely.
Do you think she will get a 2018, 2019 like response to her return, or do you think it's going to be sort of mild?
Somebody froze up here for a sec. You
Froze
back with
up.
us?
Yeah. Um, do you think Becky Lynch will have a 2018-19 level reaction from the crowd, or do you think it's going to be more like it has been, more mild like it has been recently?
I don't know. In LA, I don't know how those crowds would be for WWE. I would say probably like average to above average. It only seems like they really have big pops for like their huge stars. Like Cody gets those reactions. The Rock obviously gets them. Roman, um, people like that. Rhea, you know, but maybe not. I mean, Becky's definitely worthy of one. She's been gone for quite a while now, so maybe her being out that long will help. But knowing how WWE crowds have been, I think it will probably be a average to above average reaction.
Queen Charlotte Flair, will she return on Raw this week?
Say it again.
The Queen Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte. I would say I think she'll come back, but I think it will be probably on SmackDown. I don't know if they're going to have both her, Becky, and Charlotte come back on the same show. Um, I would say Charlotte's probably more of a SmackDown return. They probably save it for that.
Alexa Bliss.
Hmm. This one, honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's again, she's been somebody that's been talked about as coming back here soon. I don't know if they would have her come back on Raw for on Netflix since there's so many other things going on. I don't. I would say no, just because I don't think they want her to get lost in the shuffle. Um, Having all these other big matches, all these other big stars on it, I feel like she would get lost in the shuffle. Um, which is another reason why I think they moved the women's intercontinental title match off the show because they didn't want it to get overshadowed by everything else going on. So I think the same thing with Alexa Bliss. I think she'll come back, but maybe next Monday when it's not as much huge matches and huge appearances.
Just throwing this out there in the final question. Stone Cold Steve Austin, a former LA resident.
Stone Cold. I mean, I'm gonna say no, just because he's. It seems like he's been a lot more selective about his appearances in WWE recently. Most famously, him not showing up at WrestleMania 40 to confront The Rock, which was everybody was expecting that to happen, and it turns out that they couldn't get a deal done, so they swapped him with Undertaker. Um, I would think there will be legends that will show up. Um, I don't know which ones that'll be, but it would be cool to see Stone Cold. I'm not going to say definitively no, but it just seems like he's been a lot more selective about what shows he shows up on. Um, so yeah, I'll say no.
This is kind of maybe a hot take, but I kind of prefer Undertaker showing up at WrestleMania over Stone Cold. I think in a way it made more sense because he was the locker room, he was the judge, he was the locker room leader. And for him to come back and kind of tell the Rock's doing bad business and insert himself in there, I liked, but yeah. Anyways, I guess Stone Cold would have been a bigger pop for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, this is a really exciting time. I kind of always look at the beginning of January is like the start of the playoffs almost for wrestling, for WWE specifically, because WrestleMania season is there's nothing quite like it. Like that stretch from when you get ready for the Rumble to the Raw after WrestleMania is electrifying. For as a fan, it's always the time I'm the most interested in the WWE. And this is one hell of an episode of Raw to kick off WrestleMania season, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, they built this show up like a WrestleMania. I mean, you look at all the big stars, the big matches. WWE, as I think we've alluded to before, their television, well, typically their non-pay-per-view shows are not really very heavy match-driven shows. There's a lot of talking, a lot of segments. They build up to big matches, but it's definitely refreshing to have on an episode of Raw their stars wrestling in the ring, which hopefully that is something they will continue to do in 2025. But yeah, it's definitely a great start.
I wonder how transparent Netflix and the WWE will be in terms of the viewership because obviously with television ratings, the Nielsen ratings, we get that back within a few days, and it's pretty granular. I mean, you can go to the quarter hours and look at when people are tuning in and out. I wonder what Netflix is going to be like in terms of that transparency. If we'll be able to see what's working, what's not, how many people are watching it. I'm sure if it's a great number, they will say how many people are watching it. But I this could be huge for the WWE, and I think wrestling itself benefits when more people are watching wrestling, and this is a great way to get new people to watch wrestling, and to get people who didn't already have Netflix to now purchase Netflix and continue watching it. Because if you're a fan and you don't have Netflix, you're almost certainly going to get it because not only do you get Raw every week, but you have the back catalog now of episodes of Raws and pay-per-views and things of that nature. So I'm excited for this, and I'm not the kind of guy who gets excited for any episode of WWE television, but also most premium live events. Really hard not to say pay-per-view. Most premium live events don't really get me excited. It's mostly just the big four, but this is going to be a good episode, I think, and I'm excited to see who returns and who doesn't. But you know,
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the show. Um, I wasn't really happy with it when they announced it, and I'm still not really happy with it now that it's going to be on Netflix. I just think that, and this is not a solely WWE thing. This is kind of a lot of different shows and sports and things of that nature. That all of these different streaming services, you have to have access to all these different streaming services, and having Netflix now is just that's one more thing you have to be able to watch shows that you want to watch. So for me, someone who doesn't have Netflix and hasn't had it for a while and who has other streaming services, I'm not real thrilled that I have to now get Netflix if I want to watch Raw. And also too, like if you really think about it, if they continue what they've been doing on Raw for, the last year or whatever, I don't think it's worth getting Netflix to watch Raw. Their shows have not been worth watching them, having to exclusively get Netflix to watch it. Now, if they have cards like this going forward with these big stars and big matches, then yeah, definitely it would be worth it to have it. But they really need to step up their game of booking this show to gain fan interest. If you really want people to have, people who don't already have Netflix to one watch Raw, 3 hours of it, and to also people who don't have it, like myself, to pay the price for every month to have it.
Yeah.
So it definitely, we'll see how it goes. I mean, they got, I don't even remember what the price was that they got for this, but it was huge, a huge, huge number. Um, so I don't really think they probably care if people aren't happy with it being on Netflix.
Sure.
But yeah, I would have. I mean, I like the way AEW it has it where it'll be on Max, but it'll also still be on television.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have Max to watch, Dynamite and Collision and things like that. But now, if you want to watch Raw, the only way you can do it is if you watch, um, if you have Netflix.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just it's not. I didn't really like it, but we'll see how it goes. Like I said, if they have cards like this going forward or something close to it, then it will definitely be worth the price. But going off recent history, it's probably not going to be worth it.
Yeah, just looking at Netflix's pricing and plans, got standard with ads $6.99 a month. Now, I'm a little confused there because Raw will certainly have commercials. Like this is being, they're getting ad revenue from advertisers and they're seeking advertisers. So, like, if you have the $6.99 plan standard with ads, does that mean you have additional ads? Or, I mean, if you have the basic plan, are you getting the same thing as you would otherwise? Standard plan, $15.49 a month. Premium, $22.99 a month. So you're right. It's an investment for wrestling fans just to watch Raw. And I mean, down the road, eventually the catalog of stuff won't be on Peacock anymore. So I guess that'll be the home for that. But
Yeah.
I can see what you mean. It's definitely like adding another thing if you don't already have Netflix to purchase, another paywall sort of. But
Yeah, I mean, and it obviously, obviously that would change if they moved, all their WWE Vault collection off of Peacock onto Netflix, and then the pay-per-views are on Netflix. Then obviously that'd be different because then you don't need Peacock anymore.
yeah,
If you want to watch the old stuff, you have to have Peacock still, and then you have to also have Netflix to watch Raw. So if they moved everything into one place, that would be different. Then it would all just be there. But yeah, like you said, I mean, $6.99 a month. How is that going to work? Do you have to have the $15 one to watch Raw? Is it, can you watch it with the $6.99? It's really not clear. Um, but yeah, it's $6.99 a month on its own isn't bad, obviously. But
no,
when you think about all the streaming services that people have, if they have Hulu, if they have Amazon Prime, if they have YouTube TV, if they have Sling, all these different things that people have to watch their various shows, to watch their sports, all these different things. And there's tons and tons of streaming services. So if they're gonna want people to really jump on Netflix to watch this, then they really need to step up their game as far as the matches they book and the promos they have, the people who are on the shows. They're just gonna really have to make some changes to that.
I know they've talked about, or the rumor and innuendo is that they want Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and CM Punk on Netflix every week on Monday night, which would really stack the odds in Raw's favor, and could hurt SmackDown a lot in terms of the quality there. Um, but like you said, this was a $5 billion deal. It's 10-year period, but Netflix could take that option at 5 years and see their way out of this. But yeah, $5 billion. So this is a huge, huge deal for the WWE. A huge source of their revenue now because they don't make money off of live events. That's really kind of just marketing for them that they spend money for. So yeah, I mean, to your point, you need stars on this show. You need big matches, and you need segments that are going to make people want to tune in. Um, and I think Triple H is on the right track. I think it's definitely an improved product over the later stage Vince McMahon era. But to your point, I mean, sometimes I tune into Raw and it's like, man, half of the show is boring as hell. Um, and you just have to stack the deck maybe in Raw's favor and have all the stars on one show, because they have plenty of stars. I mean, they can put people on SmackDown that will, LA Knight guys, Drew McIntyre could be on that show. Kevin Owens could be on that show. Randy Orton could be on that show. And you can have big stars on that show, but you really need heavy hitters on this to warrant people going out and spending more money just to watch WWE. But um,
And also another issue that I foresee with the whole Netflix thing is, obviously to your point, Netflix, they said they want Cody, they want Roman, and they want Punk every week. We got to think about it. All three of those guys are getting up there in age.
yeah,
Punk's old. Punk's old. We talked about it. He's been hurt a lot. Roman hasn't been around as much. He's still in tremendous shape. He can still go. I don't, he's going to still be around for a while. And Cody, same thing. But those guys aren't going to be around forever. We talked about John Cena. It's his retirement tour. This is his last year, so you
yeah,
can't bank on him being there anymore. Um, and not, you look at the young stars they have there. It's been something that I think WWE's had a really hard time doing is building up those young guys to really take the place of these guys who leave. I mean, we talked about LA Knight. He's over 40 years old. Damian Pierce, excuse me, Damian Priest, same thing. He's over 40. Finn Balor's up there in age. You got a lot of guys there who are older. Becky, she's almost 40, and so is Charlotte. And it can't, the whole women's division can't just be Rhea, you know, um, and Bianca. I mean, I don't think Bianca's that old. Um, but yeah, that's something else they're going to have to contend with is that I can't imagine that Netflix is going to be happy with, whenever those guys end up, retiring or even in, the near future, them not wrestling as much, them not appearing as much. We talked about before when Roman was champion, how, I mean, he was gone for a long periods of the year.
yeah,
This past year, he was gone for, I mean, a few months after WrestleMania. That's going to be a lot for those guys to be on those shows every week. And then Cody, he's advertised to be on Raw and SmackDown for, I think, the entire month of January. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that. Hopefully that, motivates them to build guys up more,
yeah,
continue the ascent of Braun Breaker and, build more of those guys up, maybe like Carmelo Hayes and, maybe find a place for the tag team division. Obviously, we lamented about that a couple weeks ago. Put more emphasis on the women's division, building stars there, bringing more people over from NXT. Um, that's something that will be interesting to watch and see how they deal with that. But it's definitely going to be a new world for them to have to navigate with Netflix. It's a whole different animal than television, where people can just just turn it on and see what's going on. Netflix, you actually have to have a commitment to want to watch it.
yeah.
So they really need to step up their game there.
Yeah, two things. One, to your point, this is a 10-year deal, and most of your stars, from Gunter to a Finn Balor, we're talking 37 to 43 years old. Anywhere in that range, Cody and I think Roman both are 39 years old. Finn Balor's 43 years old. Like you said, LA Knight, Damian Priest are both over 40. Even a guy like Gunter, who we think of as a younger guy, he's 37 years old. He's been around the block. Drew McIntyre is getting up there in age. Those guys aren't going to be around for 10 years. I worry less for the women's division because NXT has so many young, promising women. And you have Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, who are already established and young. Io Sky's, I think, fairly young. I don't think she's even 30 years old yet, maybe. Um, so you have room there, and then you have the Roxanne Perez's and the Tiffany Strattons and Lola Vice and Jada Parker, and you have You have talent there. But the men's division, I mean, like you mentioned, Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Triv Williams, Austin Theory is a guy I think of with a lot of potential, but there are not a lot of guys, and most, they're. I think Triv Williams is over 30 already. I think, I don't think he's in his 20s still. I don't know about Carmelo Hayes off the top of my head, but my point being is that not only have they not done a great job of building stars, but you don't have a lot of guys who you can build. So I don't know what the game plan is there, but I don't know. I mean, my second point is Max Dynamite on Max this week. It seemed like to me, and I want to know what your opinion is that they had a lot of older wrestlers on that show, possibly to catch some of those lapsed wrestling fans. You had Jeff Jarrett do a 6-minute promo. You had Adam Copeland, obviously Edge. You had John Moxley on the show, formerly Dean Ambrose. Um, do you think that that's a model to work with? And do you think Raw will try to do that on Netflix? Have some older wrestlers on the show to bring older fans in.
Well, yeah, I mean, your first show on, you know, what typically would be a new channel. Now it's a new, it's a streaming service going from regular television. Yeah, I mean, you want to have your big stars. The biggest stars you have in your company, you want them on that show because there's more of a chance that people are going to recognize them. Either one, they are a lifelong wrestling fan who grew up with those guys and want to see them on TV, or they have such big name recognition that people who might not, be the biggest wrestling fans in the world, they'll at least be like, "Oh, I recognize him. I've seen him before. Let me tune into this, see what's going on with him." And then they can see everything else. But yeah, I mean it would make sense for that, and that's anything. I mean, in any sport, in any show, you want the people who will draw the most eyeballs to bring them onto the show, and then they can see those big stars and they can see the other younger people they're trying to bring up. Um, and then they can latch onto them and be like, oh, I want to see where this person goes, or I just want to see what they do. So yeah, I think that's a model that that anyone would use going forward, but especially for WWE and for AEW moving things around on different shows and on different streaming services. It's definitely something that I think they'll definitely do in the future.
Um, any final thoughts? Raw on Netflix. I think we've drove the point home. This is a big deal. This is a big episode of Raw. This is a big moment for WWE moving into this new era. Anything you'd like to add before we sign off here?
Um, I think we pretty much covered all the major things. I don't remember if did we talk about Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre?
I mentioned it. We didn't really touch on it. I guess I don't. I mean,
Okay.
what are your thoughts on that match?
I mean, it's nothing major. Jay's a big star, so is Drew. Drew's made a point of going after guys who've helped Roman, like you said. Um, so hopefully Drew wins, keeps his momentum going. Other than that, there's nothing else I think really needs to be said about it. Um, but overall, I think what I would ask is for these different matches, obviously, there are major matches, there are major feuds that have been going on. As far as like potential like winners, who do you think wins the matches, and are will there be more matches between the two people going forward, or is this like the we're finishing it here and moving on to something else?
That's a good question. It's I think in the case of Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre, this is probably going to be a one-off. I think Drew McIntyre is going to, if not seriously hurt Jey Uso, I think he's definitely going to beat him. I think he's going to win that match. I don't know if Jey Uso will be on the shelf afterwards or not for a little while, but I don't think they're going to run that back. I think Drew McIntyre is a higher target there. Uh, Seth Rollins versus sorry about that. Seth Rollins versus CM Punk. Definitely not the end of this feud. I can certainly see this going to WrestleMania in some way, shape, or form. Um, I really thought CM Punk should have lost that match against McIntyre at Bad Blood. I think every um, the conventional wisdom would say that Drew McIntyre needed to go over. Seth Rollins is clearly the heel in this. Seems like he's definitely the heel in this, if there were one. So I feel like Seth Rollins should win, is what I'm trying to say, but I think Punk will. I think Punk's gonna win that, even though he probably shouldn't. Because at the end of the day, winning or losing is what defines if your ideology, if what you're saying is right or wrong in wrestling. And if you listen to that promo on Raw last week, which obviously was worked, and clearly it's something that these guys have talked about and discussed, but it felt very real. It felt like these guys were really, you know, really saying what they felt and how they, what they meant. And it was personal to them. I think CM Punk, you don't have CM Punk lose and make him look like he ran out of the company when he's the babyface in this scenario. I just don't think that would look good. Is my point. Make a long story short.
Yeah.
Women's World Championship match: Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley. I guess I already said I think Rhea's going to win. I just think Rhea Ripley is probably the better suited candidate to enter WrestleMania season with the title. But at the same time, if Becky Lynch does return and Liv Morgan retains this title, she did beat Becky for it. Becky is a huge baby face. I just worry that if you immediately insert Becky Lynch back into the title picture, you're going to reinforce that sentiment that she is too much like Hulk Hogan. She's always in the title picture. She's always being pushed down people's throats to the point where they don't like her anymore. And I don't want that, because I love Becky Lynch being this beloved babyface, the people's champion, the man. Big time Becky. I just don't want to see her get to the point where she has go away heat and people want her to leave again. So I don't know. I think you put the title on Rhea and let Rhea continue the magic that she had when she had that title. She was so over when she was the champion, and she still is over because she's Rhea Ripley. But I think she's probably the better person to hold that belt in my mind. Did I say Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa?
Not yet, no.
Okay. I think Roman Reigns. It's weird, you don't want to. It would be strange to have the blow off of a feud be on an episode of Raw, but this is a big episode of Raw, like we've, I think, driven the point home on. And I think Roman Reigns takes this. I think he wins his Ulafala back, and we can start pivoting in a new direction. Now, maybe that's The Rock. Although I'm a little weary of you bring Rock back and now it's him versus Roman, when clearly he was eyeing Cody Rhodes and he wants Cody's belt, and they made that pretty clear that that's who he wants to face. So to then pivot that to Roman Reigns would feel weird, and it would be incoherent and a little inconsistent with what he's already kind of said he wants to do and who he wants to face. But maybe the future is Roman Reigns versus The Rock for the Ulafala. I don't know, but if you keep continuing the Roman Reigns and Solo thing, it's going to get to a point where no one's going to want to see it, because we've had X amount of matches between these guys now. We had what felt like the blow off at Survivor Series. You did the War Games match. Roman Reigns side won. Now he's just coming to pick up the scraps. He wants his Ulafala back. Solo left with it. It almost seemed like a mistake that he left with it, like they forgot to take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but I would I would counter with this. I would say, it could be a situation where maybe The Rock, because it is tribal combat, which basically means anything goes. Anybody can get involved. Anybody can do anything. Uh, I would contend more that it would make more sense to me if The Rock got involved and cost Roman the match, because of the fact that when he came back at Bad Blood, even though it was kind of a one-off thing that really didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, there was a point in there where the camera panned to Solo, and the other guys in the New Bloodline were asking him about it, and he said, "No, this is part of the plan. Like this is part of the plan." So to me, it would make more sense if it's Roman Solo. Roman's about to win. He's about to win back to Ulafala, and The Rock gets involved, costs Roman the match. Solo wins. he keeps the Ulafala, and then later on it's revealed that The Rock was the devil in Solo's ear, his wise man, so to speak, which I think we've done before.
Yeah.
Him being the one to say, Roman, you lost at WrestleMania. You dishonored the family. You're an embarrassment. You have no right to be tribal chief. So that's why I got involved, and I made sure you wouldn't be the tribal chief. Solo's tribal chief now. I'm his wise man, and you can kind of navigate from there. But I think that would be more of a natural progression because then you can point back to things that led to that. Especially if they do go with Cody and John Cena at WrestleMania, it would be a natural thing for The Rock to face Roman. It's the match that you know was rumored to supposed to take place last year that the fans revolted against. Now there's been a large section of fans that want to see that match, and it would make more sense this year because now Roman's a babyface, The Rock and the New Bloodline would be heels, so it would make more sense to do it that way. So that to me is kind of what I would hope would happen. I don't think Solo just getting beaten and then throwing the New Bloodline off into the ether is a good idea, especially with how much time you've put into it. Um, so hopefully I think that's what happened because I think one, it would give The Rock something to focus on, something that's not just him showing up and saying, I want to challenge Cody. And then you have all these months you have to fill up with trying to figure out how to make that rivalry work.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a reason The Rock's there. It keeps the New Bloodline relevant. It keeps Roman as that babyface fighting from underneath to try to get back, his crown as the tribal chief. So I think that hopefully that's what happens. Because I think that would be a really good way to navigate through WrestleMania season with this.
Do you think The Rock bitch slaps Roman like he did Cody at that press conference?
Um,
Just
I mean, it definitely would. It would be a big moment. I think it would get a lot of attention.
yeah, I think it would too.
But yeah, I mean, I think I think that would definitely add a lot of. That would be definitely a very viewed moment on social media if that were to happen.
So uh, Jordan thinks The Rock is going to give Roman Reigns the rock bottom, calls him this match. I don't know. I stand by what I said. I feel like The Rock and listen, people can get upset that they aren't going to get the Rock versus Roman match. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. The Rock was angling towards a match with Cody Rhodes. The last time he was really on TV was him face to face with Cody Rhodes, talking about how he wanted that championship. He can keep carrying around that People's Championship, that Brahma Bull thing. I don't care. I would assume he wants the actual strap around his waist, around him, over his shoulder, or whatever. So that to me, that's what you do. You have The Rock versus Cody Rhodes, and sort of the same energy that WrestleMania 18 match had between The Rock and Hulk Hogan. The elder statesman coming back. Maybe the crowd favors him as opposed to Cody Rhodes. That's fine, but you have that transfer of magic there. The Rock was the guy. Now it's Cody Rhodes. Sure, a few generations here have been skipped, but putting Cody over would do a lot for Cody Rhodes if he needs anything, which I think at this point maybe he does because people have really started to turn their back on him as champion. I think in the IWC, not children or anything like that. I think kids will always love Cody Rhodes, but the IWC, the 18 to 34 wrestling fan or whatever the key demo is, starting to turn their back on Cody, and I think beating The Rock at WrestleMania in the main event of one of the nights would be huge for him. But anyways, I understand what you're saying, though. I mean, The Rock being Solo's wise man and keeping the New Bloodline afloat would be smart. It would be good booking, I guess. But at a certain point, Solo has to be the legs of that group and make it interesting. If he can't do that, then they put a lot of equity into him that they shouldn't have because he's not the performer they think he is. But anyways, final thoughts, Jordan, on the Raw debut on Netflix.
Um, it's gonna be a big night, like we said. I anticipate it being very highly viewed, with all the star power, all the great matches. Um, I'm excited to see where it goes because the results of the matches and who shows up, who says what, I think will really shape how WrestleMania season goes through the Royal Rumble, through the Elimination Chamber, and then ultimately to WrestleMania. I think this is going to be a very consequential show for that. And I'm excited for it to see how everything shakes out.
With that said, 2024 was a big year for Petree, but obviously, we got the beginning of the show. Uh, got a few podcasts behind our belt, learned a little bit about what we bring to the table. We want to wish everyone a happy new year. Thank you for joining us in 2025. We expect this to be a big year for the show, be a launching point for us. Continue doing what we do. As always, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment about anything we talked about in this episode, your thoughts. If you agree with us, if you don't, if you have anything you'd like to add, um, between World's End and AEW's big week that they've had, and next week Raw on Netflix. Follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, um, and thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate everyone's support, and we want to keep growing this channel and take our slice of the pie of this big wrestling community here in the internet. So, with that said, Jordan, talk to him, brother.
Top dogs out.